Hi, and thank you all for joining us today. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Hi, everyone. Happy New Year to you all. I hope you all had a fabulous New Year. I want to again say thank you so much for joining us. Today, we are Ethereal Encounters Unveiled, and we're broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 on the Gulf Coast and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Please join us in one of our various chat rooms. This way you can connect with our guests, ask any questions or comments that you like. Today, we're really excited. We're going to be speaking with Lynn K. Russell. She is the author of a book called Beyond NDEs, which are near-death experiences for folks that may not know. The next step in near-death experience research. Just a little bit about Lynn. She studied religions and spirituality for the last years of her life in search for the truth. That quest accumulated with the research she did for Dr. Jeffery Long's book, Evidence of the Afterlife. And in that process, she researched 2,500 cases, NDE cases. And her research brings very profound spiritual knowledge and answers to the human age-old question, what is this all about, and more. And we're going to be talking about that. I will let Lynn talk more about herself. I'm going to bring her on board right now. Hi, Lynn.
Hi.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's so exciting to have you.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for asking me.
Of course. Let me get the ticker running so folks will know. We'll show you guys her website. And of course, it's running across the screen. For those of you listening, you can find her at lynnKrussell.com. That's RUSSELL, lynnKrussell.com. And of course, I will have all the links to where you can find her on social media, her website, in the description of this video. So as soon as it's done airing, I will make sure to add all of those links. So Lynn, again, thank you so much for being here. If you can tell us some of your backstory, your spiritual growth, what inspired you to write this book. We're going to ask you a lot of questions about it, but just give us a good, 360 view of what brought you through your spiritual journey today. I'm going to give you the stage for a minute or two while you do the talking.
Well, originally I was frightened of death, and that's what brought me to spirituality in the very beginning. And I was raised in an atheist home, and so when I asked my mother what was going to happen to me when I died, and that was around 8 years old, I was told that I was going to disappear. And that frightened me because I didn't want to disappear. I was a child. And so that was too hard for me to take. And so that's what awoken my interest in spirituality. And I think I went to my first church at 9 years old, and I just began researching around my mid-teens all the different religions and spiritual philosophies and ways to see things, and that's a long journey all the way through, and loved every bit of it, and I learned a great deal. But when I did the research for the near-death experiences, that's when it brought all of that together and brought me back to all the questions that we ask about why we're here, what's this all about, and so forth. And so I have those answers now, at least the answers that I believe I feel good with. Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good. So you didn't have an NDE yourself, correct? You just did a lot of this legwork and research and prep for this book that you were helping put together. Am I right about that?
Well, I had a very, very, very small one. NDE, and it was extremely small. I was very ill, and I was in bed. And 1 minute I was in the bed, and the next minute I was in a tunnel. It was that fast, just
Wow.
blinked. And I think we're going up the tunnel, and a big booming voice came down and said, "Take her back. It's not her time." And my guide said, "But she died." And the voice said, "Take her back. She has much left to do." And that was the end of it. So it wasn't, I don't really, I mean, like when I read all the knowledge and information that people have come back with, mine was almost non-existent. However, I did have a couple of STEs, so spiritually transformative experiences.
Yeah, yes, I read about them in your book. I've interviewed quite a few people on their NDE experiences, and and from what I've read and watched other people talk about theirs, one of the correlating terms that I hear a lot is where you have these angelic beings or God or Jesus, it could be any of the above, telling someone that their time is not ready yet to take them back, or they will be asked a question like, do you want to stay or do you want to go back? Why is it that, well, it just seems odd to me that it would almost be deemed like a mistake in having you die in the first place. Like if God's overseeing our life and death, why wouldn't it be at the exact right time? Why, that puzzles me about NDEs. Do you have any answer for that?
Well, I do. It's a little bit difficult for some people to accept, but God has nothing to do with it. We are amazing spiritual beings who are very, very creative, and so it's our decision when we leave this existence and go on. And well, partly, I mean, like we before we came here, we made a life plan of this plan. And during that life plan, we decided when we were going to die and how. And we also decided chore or a job of some sort that we were going to accomplish when we're here. And so we need to accomplish that. That's very, very important. But anyway, and so that's all us, our doing. And so we're supposed to go back when we designed that time. But some of us are in accidents or illnesses or operations or whatever. And so we wind up going back faster or sooner. And that's why we're sent back, because it's not our time. But God has just, how do I explain this? This is really hard to explain. But if you imagine an entity that is so way beyond anything we can even conceive of,
Mm-hmm.
and this entity creates through love and consciousness. And so in that love and consciousness, it created the universe. But then it said, go and do your own thing, because we have complete free will. And so, yes, there is a plan. Yes, there is definitely steps and things like that. But that's because those are the things that we decided before we came into this life. And so God really has nothing to do with it. God says, go have fun. And it's up to us what kind of fun we have.
That kind of makes sense. I mean, it is a little bit, against what a lot of us are taught to believe, that God is in control of are coming and going. But I mean, that kind of makes sense, because I always wondered why people were asked, do you want to come back? Do you want to move forward? So it did seem a little bit of a contradiction.
Yeah. They do ask. And then the person will say, I want to stay. And then they give them all the reasons why they should go back. so, so it's sort of a contradiction, because you're either saying you can go back and it's your decision, or not. But
Right.
it sounds to me like, the people or the soul will say, I want to stay here. It's beautiful. I love it here. And then they're shown their children or their tasks that they didn't do, or whatever, or the impact they would have upon the world if they went back, and sort of convincing them that maybe they should think that through.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's so true. How long ago did you do the research? Like, how many years did it take you to, do the research? 2,500 cases is a lot. Like, how long was that process for you?
Well, actually, I'm still researching, so I never stopped. But what happened was with the NDERF, that's Near Death Experience Research Foundation. They have people write in and talk about their experience and explain all that's happened. And then after they tell their experience, there's a ginormous question, like just pages of questions to answer. And so my job was to read the NDE and then to split it apart. How many people saw a light? How many people met other souls? Or,
Right.
those kind of things. So I broke it all apart. That began, I never paid attention to the exact year, but I'm guessing around 2006 or 2007 that it began. And as I say, I've never stopped. So.
Yeah. Was this like a job you had with them, or was it? Yeah. Oh, so it was an actual job. Like,
well, no, volunteer job.
Okay. Did you find one main correlating experience that made you say, like, wow, this is it? Everybody I spoke to that had or researched that had an NDE had this happen to them? Or is it because a lot of them that I read, they're so varied. I mean, very few stories I hear of folks that go into this dark void, which we could call hell. Most of them are into the light, seeing Jesus, that kind of thing. So what's the one connection for you that made you connect the dots?
Okay, that's a big question. So can we narrow it down? Because you've asked about 3 or 4 questions.
Yeah. So, in other words, when you were doing this research, was there one thing that was consistent amongst all the NDEs that made you say, like, wow, everybody had this happen to them?
Yes. The feeling of oneness, the feeling that they're connected to the universe is them and they are the universe. That was the one thing that repeated over and over and over, almost universally. So that would be the big one. And in my STE, that was the message that I got as well, was the big oneness of everything. And so that was the thing that connected me. And then I said, I didn't originally plan on writing. I had no intentions of writing. I just wanted to be a writer and write books, but I had novels I was going to write. And when I had this research and I was learning all this stuff, I just had to share it. And so that's how the book came about. So
let's talk about your spiritual journey, the first one that you had. I think it was in your kitchen, if my memory serves correctly. You were looking out your window, and let's dive into some of those.
Okay. I had actually three experiences that sort of all linked together, and they really were quite beautiful. The first one, I was doing the dishes, and the house was quiet. I had three children. I was a single parent, but the house was quiet, and it was always during each one of these experiences happened when the house was very quiet, which is unusual in my house at that time. Anyway, so the three experiences where the first one was I was doing dishes, and there's a window above the sink, and I'm looking out, and there's an apple tree in the backyard, and I'm seeing the apple tree, but I don't even think I was conscious of seeing it. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, I became the apple tree. And the apple tree was me. There was literally no separation between the apple tree and myself. And that was like, whoa, that's so cool. And it was very short, and every kind of life form that I thought of, or even plants or animals or whatever kind, I became it, and it was me. There was no separation at all. And so that was the first experience. And as I say, it was very brief. It was maybe 30 seconds, maybe. I don't know.
Wow.
I didn't time it. The second experience was I was watching fingerprints off the hall walls. And so I'm paying attention to the walls and not paying attention to anything spiritual. And all of a sudden, I wasn't seeing the wall anymore. I was seeing an atom with the nuclei and the electrons going around. And then that expanded to our solar system with the sun and the planets going around. And that expanded to the galaxies and the nuclei of the galaxy and them spanning around. And throughout this micro to macro universe, I was getting the message that this didn't just happen, that there was order and planning and an intelligence behind all of this. So that was one part of the message. The other part was, and this scared me, it was that my being was intricately connected to the operation of the universe. And I did not like that. Didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if it meant that I was going to have to accomplish something, or it just scared me. And so I stopped. That stopped the experience, whatever was happening. And so then the next experience was I was in the living room, picking up toys and tidying up, and I didn't see anything else but my living room, but I felt this presence in the room with me. And I couldn't, as I say, I couldn't see anything, but it was so strong. And there was more love than I can ever tell. I mean, it was just overwhelming. And this love, and I felt like I was connected somehow to this being that I couldn't see. This love being. Anyway, so I felt like I was connected. And then I heard words, and the words were very clear. And it said, this is where you came from, and this is where you will return. And that was such a relief for me because I was frightened of dying. And that was like, oh, okay, when? So that was the STE that I had.
Now, when this voice said to you, this is where you came from, and this is where you will return, what do you think they meant by this?
This being that place that I felt like I belonged, that being that that I was connected to, that. Because that was sorry.
That's okay. Did it feel like a Jesus presence, or no? It was just like
what I called it. Now, keep in mind that I had no spiritual background, so no religious training at all that I relied on or that I had learned. And so I had nothing to take me to a different direction. So I didn't really believe in Jesus or not believe in Jesus. It was like, okay, whatever kind of thing. So, but what I felt this light was, not light, this being was, I felt positive energy force. That is what I named it in my mind, was a positive energy force.
How do we know that NDEs are not lucid dreams?
Oh, huge difference between a lucid dream and NDEs. NDEs, a lucid dream is a dream, and you know you're dreaming, and you can control the dream, but you wake up from it. And there's just so much that happens in an NDE, because even though we all have completely, well, not we, but all the people who have had NDEs are individual, because we're all individuals and we create the experience we have. We also are very, what words do I want to use? Sorry, I lost train of my thought.
Oh, that's fine. So in a lucid dream, right. People that have had NDEs can tell the difference between the two. Is that?
Yeah. I know what I was going to say. In an NDE, even though they are very, very different from each other, they are also have about 31 or 32 elements that are exactly the same all the way through. Okay, so that doesn't change. That stays the same all the way through. And when you have a lucid dream, no two lucid dreams are alike. It's just like hallucinations. No two hallucinations are alike.
Right.
And so they don't have those basic, what I call universal elements.
After you had your spiritual epiphanies, where did they leave you? Like, did you notice that you felt changed after each one, or did you just have them and then thought about them and then just moved on with your daily life? How do you think they transformed you?
I don't think they really did in the beginning. I think I had to process things a little bit to be able to understand it, because I didn't really understand what that was all about. Now, as far as me, I was walking off the ground for months, like about 3 months. I was just in a different world, and nothing bothered me. Nothing, the kids or whatever. And I used to be a terrible nail biter. I bit my nails down as far as I could get it. And one day I looked down after this experience and I had nails, and I never bit them again. So, but those are minor things. Eventually I came to understand that for me, the experience was telling me about the oneness, which the connection to everything is. But like when people have the death experience, and you ask me what it was that people say that connected me and made me think, that was it, the oneness.
So this oneness, like when you felt one with that tree, what did that feel like to you? Can you, if you describe?
I can't, I'm not sure I remember completely, except that I thought it was really cool. It was 1972 that this happened. So it's a lot of years ago. I know that I felt like, whoa, this is cool. And I also felt honored that I was able to have that experience. I think I felt honored by all of it.
Yeah.
And I felt like, wow, was that ever a nice gift?
Gee, that's lovely. It's nice to think that. Did you tell anybody in your family after your spiritual journeys? Did you tell your kids, your husband, your sister, your brother, anybody?
Yeah, I did many, many, many years later. But at that time, no, I didn't tell anybody.
So you just kept it to yourself?
Yeah, well, I just didn't think they would understand. And my
Yeah.
family is very black and white, and you know they already know what it's all about. So don't tell them because they already know.
Yeah. What do you think led up to that? Like, were you studying a
Oh yeah,
particular? Yeah. Tell us about that. What led up
well,
to that?
I had been studying religion, and what I think led up is I began meditating in that time because that
Mhm.
was really big for transcendental meditation.
Oh, I heard that too. Yeah.
And so I was starting to learn how to meditate. I wasn't meditating when I had the experience, but I think that loosened up my ability to open myself, maybe.
That makes a lot of sense. That does. That makes a lot of sense. Because even back in the 70s, like, it wasn't really taught, like NDEs weren't, and spiritual journeys, things of the like, they weren't openly talked about. They were considered woo woo stuff, you know.
Well, actually, they didn't even know about it. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody knew about NDEs or any of the stuff that we have today in the New Age because the New Age came after the NDEs.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There
And
was.
it came also, no, that's not quite fair because it did start in the 60s and 70s with the boomers. But
Right.
it started because they were moving away from the traditional churches. But there was no, it was just go as you feel your way through kind of thing.
Right. That makes sense. How do you, or how did you deal with doubters? Like, I'm sure that people in your world, people online, whomever, they doubt any of this stuff, the NDEs, stuff like that. I think in your book you said that they exist like in all walks of life, including medical society. Because wasn't it Moody? I think in '75 pointed out this whole NDE thing. Wasn't he like the originator of it? Didn't he write the first book? Was it Moody?
Yes. Dr. Moody, Raymond
Right.
Moody did, and it
Yeah.
was in 1975. Yes.
Yeah. How do you deal with people that absolutely doubt NDEs and just say they're chemical? It's a chemical reaction in the brain, maybe from drugs given in the hospital or medicate. I'm sure you've answered this question many times.
Oh well, if it's personal, like my sister doesn't believe any of this. She
Yeah.
thinks it's silly. And so when I come across somebody, I respect their position. That's their right. They can believe whatever they want. And so that's okay. You know, that they are where they are in their development. And and they'll get to this whenever it's their time. So
Yeah, that's a good way to handle it. I mean, I do that myself. I don't try to convince anybody of anything. If they believe it, they believe it. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
What do you think accounts for this spiritual awakening that is happening globally now? There seems to be, it's all over social media. People are just feeling very spiritually, not necessarily religiously, although a lot of them are getting rebaptized or baptized. What do you think is accounting for that? Do you think it was COVID maybe had something to do with that, waking folks up? What do you think?
No, it was on its way before. I think Moody's book had a huge, because people were having NDEs, but they didn't talk about it because they didn't know what they had.
Right.
It was like, what happened? And so he gave a name to it. And then people started saying, oh, so that was one of it. There was a series of things. That was point one. The Beatles were also a big part of that because the Beatles were into, especially John. Is it John or George? John, the one that was killed, John Lennon, yes. He was into ashrams and men, and they're the ones that brought the transcendental meditation into the fore. And so that was, they had a big place in this whole picture. Also along came women's liberation and the boomers themselves stepping away from churches and starting to say, I want to find this out for myself. And and just opening up, I think. So it was like a series of things that happened all at once.
And you think that this spiritual awakening is just like a continued evolution of that whole thing?
Yeah, I think that NDEs are changing the world because the more people know about them, the more they understand and they put things together. And they, my biggest message to the world is how magnificent you really are. And I mean you and everybody that's listening to this show, how blow your mind beautiful you are. You just don't even know it. And that came from all of that, that background and scenarios and just gradual learning and growing and developing. The other thing I'm hearing from NDEs is that this is intentional from the source, that source is deliberately bringing people who are more spiritual and souls who are more advanced in their spiritual learning. I don't want to say old souls because we're all the same age, but souls who have advanced in their spiritual learning. There's more and more of them being born into the world.
Yeah, it almost seems like the name near-death experience, because don't you actually die? So you're not near death, you actually pass, didn't you?
Some do pass and some don't. And it's very hard to know the difference.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, because the ones who die, I think, now this is just a possible theory that I have. The people who die and actually have a death experience, first of all, they aren't watching say, for example, during an operation or whatever, they are dead. Their heart stopped, their brain stops, their organs are stopped, and they are they are dead. They're not, and so the medical people are working on them to bring them back and resuscitate them. And so that's part of it. But if they die in an accident or outside of themselves, then they have a more complete NDE. And those are the ones I think are asked if you want to stay or go back.
Oh.
I think so. I think that the ones who are asked and have a chance, the ones who also come to a border and can't cross, I also think are NDEs as opposed to a death experience.
Yeah, it's good to understand the distinction of the two, because I myself was confused about that, because some folks have actually, it sounds like they died. Like you said, the medical community, they're trying to revive them. There's no brain activity. There's no heart activity. I mean, sometimes 7-8 minutes can go by. So I guess technically these people have died. So there is a distinction there between a near death and a death experience, right? Yeah. What was one of them? I mean, I know this is probably a tough question, but if you could remember from those 2,500, can you talk about one or two or three that were so profound to you that they just stuck in the forefront of your mind and really made a spiritual impact on you? Or did they all seem to fall into the same category.
No, actually, there were some that were blow your mind, and I wish I could think of all of them. I can't remember their names. I'm sorry. The one person I do remember was a man called Mellon Thomas Benedict, and he has since died. And why he was so amazing was because he taught so much in his experience. He was very bitter against the world and didn't like human beings at all, and he was dying of cancer. And so he dies, and he's going up to wherever. And he said, "Stop, stop." And everything stopped. And so then he said, "I want to think about this." And so he said, "Take me to the beginning of the universe when this all began." And so and so it happened. He went right to the very beginning of, watched our universe being created, and felt that he was part of the universe, that he was, no, not part of the universe, he part of the creative force that was creating the universe. He created the universe with us. And that's why I talk about oneness, because I've had many, many people who have had experiences, where they felt, quite a few people, where they've gone to the beginning and watched the universe getting created, and they have been taken part in the creation. So they feel like they are the source. They blend and melt right into the source and become source. And that to me is cool.
Yeah.
So Mellon Thomas was one of them. But the other, and there were, as I say, there's quite a few of those. The other ones I want to talk about, and you asked me about doubters.
Yeah.
One of the things that I use against doubters is, number one, they bring back information they couldn't possibly know. They meet they couldn't possibly ever have met, and can describe or talk about it quite, well. But the other thing is that some people are dead long enough to be in a state of rigor mortis and wake up in the morgue.
Wow.
They're frozen. They can't move. They can't let anybody around them know that they're alive. And so they have to hope that somebody will see them moving their eyes. One of the people that happened to was a lady who was being identified by her brother-in-law. And so, the brother-in-law was identifying her. And he said, "Do dead people cry?" Because he noticed that there was tears coming down. And that's how, and then the attendant said, "Oh my goodness," and realized that this poor woman was alive. And so then they, and the longest one was 3 days.
And that's documented medically. That
No, it is, but it's documented in Russia. So, but there is one who's documented. 29 hours he was dead, and that is documented the whole way through, because the doctor, for some reason, put an EEG machine on his head and then walked away and left it running, and came back 29 hours later. He sat up.
Wow.
Yeah. And the machine was still going.
Wow. And this person came back to life.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what kind of NDE that person had, like how long that lasted.
I think his name is Mark, and you can look him up on NDERF. You can find him, look for toxic coral, because he was a sailor, and with the United States, and so he stepped on, when he was doing a dive, he stepped on toxic coral, and so if you look for the words toxic coral, you'll find him. And
Oh, and that's
Google it.
Google it. Yeah, folks could Google that. So that probably the toxin probably paralyzed him.
No, he was dead. The
Oh,
EEG machine was flat.
wow.
Yeah, flat for all those hours. And then he all of a sudden came back. And he didn't know what the fuss was. And then he realized,
Yeah. Wow, some of them are mind blowing. Do you think NDEs are a miracle, like a religious miracle, or do you think they're no? Talk to us about.
I think NDEs are a medical issue. And there are many doctors who are looking into it, and good for them. But we need way, way, way more. We need doctors to open their minds and realize that this is a medical issue that needs to be looked at from that perspective. And we need more research.
So a medical issue. How do you say it's a medical? Because it seems like a spiritual issue.
Dying is pretty medical,
What about the spiritual component of it? I mean, don't you think it's spiritual as well as medical?
Of course, certainly. It's spiritual as well as medical, but it's first medical to me, because as far as the world is concerned, because we need to understand it and not put our heads in the sand.
Yeah.
But as far as the spiritual, absolutely, it is definitely spiritual too. Yeah, and a lot of really cool learning. Why we're here and what it's all about.
What do you think? I spoke with someone who had a very profound NDE, and I've spoken with him a few times because it just kind of flabbergasted me, his particular experience. He met with Jesus, and he had an angelic tribe, and he, went through this whole very detailed what it was like for him to meet Jesus, what Jesus said to him. So you don't think these are religious, yet people have religious NDEs?
Yes, but it is spiritual. It's not religious. It's not attached to any religion. When people are on the other side and they ask, what religion is the right one? Never have they gotten an answer saying this one or that one. It's always whatever's best for that person. Or none. It doesn't matter. The source really doesn't care what religion you are at all.
So do you think people have NDEs contoured to their own religious beliefs and experiences in life? So they kind of,
sort of, most of the time, yes. Because, and this is a beautiful thing as far as I'm concerned, this goes back to the oneness that I talked about. That we, sorry, my brain stopped again.
That's okay. You were saying about the oneness, about that oneness experience.
It'll come back to me. Yeah.
So, that kind of makes sense, because if you're from like India, I would imagine your NDE would involve like Buddha or whatever, religious entity you worshipped and prayed to. Right?
That's right.
So really
I remember what I was going to say. What I was going to say is that we each create, everybody has a different experience because we each create our own death experience. And it's based on, as you said, what we already believe and what we already understand and know, but not all the time. Sometimes people, like, for example, I've read Jewish people meeting Jesus and Christians meeting Moses, so it really is very broad, but For the most part, yes. And what's beautiful about that is because that illustrates that we are such magnificent creative abilities we have. We don't realize, because in the same way that we create the death experience, we also create this experience. And that's what we need to know and understand, that our thoughts, our attitudes, our actions, and our choices are what dictate our lives.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that for the most part. And I know I've asked people, philosophers before, like, why would somebody choose to live a life full of suffering and pain? And they mostly say that it's like the lessons that they had to learn. That's why they chose that particular. So do you believe in like reincarnation as well? Is that part of, yeah? Tell us a little bit about your belief in that.
Because that goes back to the oneness. For me, everything goes back to the oneness, actually. But that goes back to the oneness from the point of view that we are source experiencing something that source or spirit cannot experience, and that is separation. So we are having this existence in a separate body to give back to the source. And so we keep doing that. Like we'll choose, and during the reincarnation, we're learning different lessons and growing, and we start separate from the source and grow back to the source. And so that's our lessons.
Why do you think we're separated, before birth from the source? Why couldn't we just be connected to it or are we connected to it?
We are from the point of view of the spirit. The spirit never is disconnected, and the soul within us is always connected to source. But we are. This is very difficult to explain.
No, take your time. No, I know it is. So we're always connected from birth, and even before birth to the source. But we develop a stronger connection, do you think, until our death? And then if we come back, is this just like another way to reach the source until we get it right?
No, because when we separate originally, the very first time that we decide, we separate, or the source separates us. Okay, you asked why we can't remember. We wouldn't be able to function here if we could remember our death, the time in between lives. If we could remember that, we wouldn't be able to function properly as a separate entity now. And we need the separation to be able to give back to source. Because when we're separate, we do things and experience things and make decisions that the source couldn't possibly experience. And so because you said about the connection, we are connected, our source, our spirit is connected. And because of that connection, the source is always gaining and always learning and always growing from us. Now, a soul becomes a soul, say for the first time. It doesn't know anything. It has to grow and learn and develop. And it begins like a savage and has to learn to be human and learn to be, more caring and whatever. Yeah.
So when we reincarnate, is this just an extension of our journey? So we come in different forms?
Our journey, and also to give back to the source and to continue to give back. A new life and a new way of giving. Because each life is completely different from each other.
Right. So do you think at any point we get a chance to experience enlightenment, cosmic consciousness, and then there so ends our journey and we become fully one with the source?
Yes. Those are the people that I mentioned to you who enter into this to light, become the light, and create with the light. Those people are at the end of their journey.
I'm just thinking as you're as you're explaining. That's good. Okay, so I have here I think in your book it said those who died returned fully, accepting that time does not exist in other dimensions and is the special domain of physical existence. Indeed, some NDEs experiencers came back to tell us that everything was happening simultaneously while they were on the other side. Maybe you could explain that.
Well, because that goes back to the oneness again. It's all happening at the same time because there's only one entity experiencing it. Saying that, we need time here. In this separation, we couldn't separate without time. Time is a major piece of being able to be separate. So it segments our life and segments, segments everything. I mean, time is really an illusion. And Einstein said that time and space are an illusion.
Yeah.
And they're the same.
Yeah, it's so trippy when you hear a scientist talk about how when you, like, even if you live in a very tall building, like say a skyscraper in New York City that's like 40 stories tall, that the people at the top experience different time than the people at the bottom. And so the more you travel out into space, time becomes a non-differential. It's non-existent. Yeah. Time doesn't exist. It's like a man-made thing. So I can completely get that. How do you feel about alternate dimensions? A lot of people that are in the spiritual community are talking about how we've shifted timelines, that we live in a different dimension. You have the Mandela effect, and there's just a lot going on that people are talking about now spiritually. Like, have you been following any of that? Like, does any of that make sense to you?
Well, to be honest, I haven't been following it, so I don't know about those things. I don't know what the Mandela effect is.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I happen to be a believer in it. It goes back to Nelson Mandela's death. Some people believe that he died in jail, and other people believe that he didn't, that he died when he was released from jail. It's very difficult to explain. That's like the start of it. But we're not here to talk about the Mandela effect. It's very complicated.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm not aware of all of the, because I'm so busy. I'm really rushed off my feet. I've got so many jobs. I just don't have time to wander around in them. Right. And I would love to.
Yeah, it's a lot. Even for me, sometimes it becomes very overwhelming to try to process all of these different concepts and about time and dimensions. And the people that experience NDEs say that they happened in seconds, some of them, but it seemed like hours, like it could have been hours or days. What do you think accounts for that? How does that work?
Well, because there's no time on the other side. They can be there for as long as, there was one person who I think was gone for about 15 minutes. I think that was it. And she lived 150 years in a whole completely different life.
Wow.
And lived it just like this life, day after day after day. 150 years.
And she remembers that? Does she have good memory of it?
Well, I'm not sure how much of that life she remembers. And there was another one, a fellow who spent, I don't know how many years, but lots and lots of years, like huge amounts, building architecture in this other existence. and then came back here.
So maybe that's what it's meant when they talk about different dimensional planes of existence, because that person's body was here.
Yeah.
They were having an NDE, but they were experiencing a whole nother life somewhere else.
Yeah,
Wow,
and actually, I think that NDEs or the spirit realm is another dimension.
So you're having this NDE in another dimension. Wow, it's happening. Yeah, that kind of makes a lot of sense, really. It does. It's a lot to process, but why do you think some folks experience some negative NDEs where they travel to hell? What do you think that's all about?
Yeah, well, the hellish experiences or the negative experiences, I hadn't had a lot of those because most people don't talk about them because they think that they're bad, and so they don't report them. But the ones that have been reported, they've been taken out of hell. The ones that I've experienced, so they've had these horrible, horrible experiences, and then they've been removed by their guides or or Jesus, or whoever, and they get out of hell. Well, now they go to the positive, beautiful place, and they say, "What was that all about?" And they are repeatedly told that was your doing. That's where you thought you should be.
Oh.
We didn't put you there.
So that was the person's own perception.
Yes.
Wow. I'm just thinking about that. So maybe they lived a not so good life and felt they deserved hell. Is that what you're saying?
No, it could have been that they were, no, because some of them are absolutely beautiful people. But the problem is that they've been brainwashed to think that they're not good enough. And as a matter of fact, there's one fellow, and I have it in my book. He was going up the tunnel, and he ran across other souls that were caught in the tunnel and wouldn't move. And so he invited them to join him. Come on. And they said, no, we can't because we don't deserve. We've been taught that we are not worthy. And to me, that is so sad. So sad. I wonder if those are the ghosts. I'm not saying they are, but I wonder.
It's funny. I was going to ask you about that. Like, being a spiritual person, do you believe in the spiritual realm where people are seeing apparitions, having poltergeist experiences? So maybe these people are stuck. Like maybe they had an NDE and like you said, they just don't want to move forward.
Well, or they died and they don't want to move forward. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, there are. I agree.
Wow. Do you think that people that have had NDEs or even yourself get answers to the questions like, what is life all about? Why am I here? Do I have a purpose?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean,
oh, I think you froze up there. Can you hear me? Lynn? We'll give Lynn okay, you kind of froze up there, so you need to kind of repeat.
Oh, okay. Help me to remember.
No, that's okay. We were talking about if people who have had NDEs get answers to the questions like, what is life all about? Why am I here? Do I have a purpose? That kind of thing. Okay.
So my book is pretty much about all of that. That's exactly what my book is about. And it's very hard to explain why are we here? We're here to give back. Number one, to give back to the source. Number one thing is to get back to the source. And we will continue to have lives and experiences for that reason, because, as I said about reincarnation, so, that's one of the big reasons why we're here. The other thing is, though, that we can learn and grow and have experiences that, because as we learn and grow and we get back to the source learns and grows. So, because we are also source as well, as I've mentioned. So, it's like a big circle. And I just want to talk a teeny bit about science.
Yeah.
I fell in love with science around 45 years ago, something like that, and just was so thrilled by what I was learning. Anyway, there's some experiences that are experiments that have been done, recent ones, and one of them is that, and I think this is fairly well known now, that our minds get a signal 6 seconds or 6 or 7 seconds before we even know what we're going to be reacting to.
Right.
So, yeah, so that came out a little while ago, and so where is that signal coming from?
Right.
That, to me, is our connection to source.
Yeah, I read about that study a few years ago in a discussion about free will. So I think the scientist purported that if we truly have free will, how could our brains be getting this signal seconds before we make this decision?
And are we making the decision, or is it a reaction? I don't know. That's a good question. I've never thought of it. I'll have to do that.
Yeah, I remember the debate so clearly, because it was a debate about free will. And this one scientist was saying, if you're getting this thought or signal 6 seconds or 5 seconds, whatever it is, before you even make the decision, then how do you truly have free will? And where is this coming from?
That's my question.
Yeah, it's trippy, right? It is. It's very trippy to think about.
Another experiment that I wanted to mention is that and I won't go into a lot of detail on this, but the Global Consciousness Project has proven that our consciousness has an effect on the atmosphere of the world. And that means our consciousness has an effect on the universe, because we are in the universe. The universe is right around us. It's not out there. It's here.
Yeah, I believe that too. I know they're doing a lot of studies on that. To be well, and during these global meditations, they were able to gauge, the amount of energy and the outcome afterwards. So it's pretty fascinating. What else do you love in the science field that kind of proves all this stuff? Anything else stand out?
Well, some of it is very difficult for people to accept, but one of them is that this is an illusion. This life is, that this is not real. And that is said repeatedly over and over and over by NDEs. People who have had the death experience and come back, they say, this isn't real. This is an illusion.
Wow, is that right?
Yeah. And that's hard for people to accept, because what are you talking about? I'm real,
Right.
So it's difficult. Another one is particles, that teeny tiny little, atoms are made up of particles, and atoms are the smallest. They make up everything in the world, right? And everything in the universe. So but the atoms are made from particles, and those teeny tiny little particles have consciousness, and they've shown they react to consciousness.
I believe that fully.
So those are cool things. That's a future book.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting. I love how science is now open to exploring these topics more. You know, right. So we have a lot of, like, even, what's his name? Keku, the Oriental.
Michio. Yeah.
Even Michio has come on board with a lot of this.
Yeah. And Norm, yeah. He's great. He's
awesome. Elon Musk too believes that we live in somebody popped in. Let's see what they said here. They said, gotta go, but happy I found your conversation. I've saved it to revisit. Thank you so much. Well, yeah, it is a mind blowing. Thank you so much for popping in. And just to quickly mention, we have a chat room. I know a lot of folks just sit there. They don't really ask any questions. They're there, but they're not saying anything. So by all means, ask away if you have anything that you're pondering, anything that Lynn talked about that you want clarification on. By all means, please do ask. And while we're past the 6 o'clock hour, I just would like to say, for those of you that are just tuning in, you're listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled with our guest, Lynn K. Russell. We are live on the United Paranormal Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 and 107.7 FM in New Orleans. Thank you so much again for joining us. Your support means everything, and it truly does. So I want to show Lynn's website. I always like to do that. Let me just get my ducks in a row. And again, I will have the links. Share screen. I will have the links so you could see her website here. Oh, wait, I got to present it. There we go. So here's her website. And let me scroll down. Gosh, it's so much multitasking. So as you can see, there's books about interviews, her thoughts, her blog. A lot of her research is in here. You can find her on social media. There's her book. You can purchase this.
No, the first book was the one. Yeah, not that one.
Okay, so let's click on
the one with the butterfly.
This one here.
No. Yeah.
Oh, this is NDE. Here we go.
No, not that one. No.
That's that's somebody else.
No, that's my book, but that's a way back ago. That's old. The one with the butterfly on the front.
Oh, this is your latest book. No.
Keep going down.
Scroll down.
Okay.
Right on Amazon here. Let's see.
It's called
Beyond
NDEs. The one with the funny that one is a children's book. And it's a little bit spiritual too. Yeah.
This one here, Beyond NDEs. Yeah. Oh. Well, when I clicked on that link, that's what came up.
Yeah.
No. You have the link to your book. But anyway, I will, of course, put the link. Here's the link. I saved it. Let me see if I could get it open here.
Just lynnKrussell.com.
Okay.
It's super
no, I was trying to share it. Hold on. Let me remove that one. And I don't know why it's just showing here. But anyway, I have like 3 windows open, and for some reason your book is not going to the Amazon site where I wanted to be. But anyway, I will have the links. Let me stop sharing. Okay. I will, like I said, I'll have the link to your book. It's an excellent read, and I really enjoyed, I didn't read all of the NDEs, but I kind of picked and choose the ones that I wanted to read. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to read some more. They're fascinating because they're so different. A lot, of course, the circumstances that people pass, and then how long their NDE lasts and what they experience. And like you said, this connection to oneness. But Lynn, don't they all come away from this experience a changed person?
Oh,
Do you?
yes. Yeah.
They do, right? How do they change? What are some of the metamorphoses that they go through?
Yeah. 90% of them become very caring, and they want only to do what's best for the world, and they're
Mm.
very giving. They're much more patient. They're much more open-minded, and they usually step away, not always, but very often they step away from religion and become spiritual, and
Oh
more
wow!
open-minded spiritual.
So you
So
mean like dogmatic religion that they maybe followed in their life, like Christianity? So they step away from that and they just become like more globally spiritual. Is that
that's
right?
right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. And another thing is that they don't care about material things. Like that doesn't matter to them. They and they have a very hard time adjusting to being back because it is so beautiful there with all that
Right.
love, and they're just in ecstasy, and then they have to come back here. Excuse me. I'm sorry. And
Uh,
so it is very, very difficult and frustrating for them, um, because, as I've already said, this world for them isn't real, and so they feel like they're in this pretending place, and they have to go through the steps before
mm,
they leave, and it's very hard for them. Most unfortunately, most NDErs, uh, marriages or come, they
yeah.
lose their friends, and they lose their partners. Yeah, it's sad.
It is. I've heard that from so many people that I've interviewed that they had major struggles with reacclimating back to the planet. And one gentleman I spoke with said that when his angelic guides sent him back to Earth, he felt heavy and almost dirty. He said it felt. I know those were
Oh,
the
dear.
yeah, those were the adjectives he used to describe
Too
that.
bad.
Yeah, like he felt dirty coming back here. I
Yeah.
think what he meant too was that he was in such a pure place. It was free of sin and free of a burden of all the earthly worries. And then when you have this NDE and you're in this miraculous place, really, and then you get thrusted back to earth, come on, I mean, that's got to be a tough one, right?
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that they find helps them is to get back to the love, and
Right.
and, and just connect with that love, and to be the love here, and to teach it, or to show it wherever they go. And that's what
Yeah.
I told you. I really do mean that we are magnificent. We can do so much more than we think we can. And what's happening right now, as far as the spiritual side, they see these wars and things like that. Well, because this isn't real, it's like a bunch of children in a sandbox playing, and they're
Yeah.
having a quarrel. They can't take it seriously at the spirit level, but here it's very serious.
I agree. And I know why people struggle with the concept when you say or when they read that this is the matrix, that it's not real. I think what it means too is it's real in the physicality. We're here physically, but to our spirit, this is not real.
And 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 we connect to this as being not real, or at least they connect with it being not real. But we have to be here. We're, as I've already said, we're here for a reason. We're not here, for no reason. So we're here to accomplish something. That's our goal.
I believe that fully. Everybody has a life purpose. Everybody walking on the planet.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You know, and it takes some longer to discover that. Maybe they don't find it right away, but I believe that everybody does have a life purpose. I think what you said before too about the wanting the drive to teach, to spread the message after someone has an NDE. All the folks that I spoke with that have had NDEs said that was a driving force to teach, to tell other people, to bring awareness to. Did you find that? You found that as well?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And we're not thinking about it, but there are millions and millions and millions of people that are having NDEs or have had, so many people, not just around the world, but in North America, there's millions and millions. Every city has got a group.
Yeah. And imagine the amount of people that don't share the story of it too, because like you said before, they have a fear that people are going to think they're crazy or psychotic.
And sometimes their profession, they're frightened of being, like, for example, if they're doctors or if they're scientists and they have an NDE, they don't really want to talk about it with other scientists or even openly, because it might affect their job.
Sure. I know that I've read where some doctors were blown away because patients would actually be able to tell them, I saw you pick up this tool, or saw you took a phone call or whatever it was, and they were blown away. Like, how could she know that she was on the operating table or whatever?
She was unconscious or she was dead.
How could she know that? Right. So there's a lot of proof coming to the surface, which is great.
Yeah.
What do you think from that moment you had that transformative spiritual journey in the kitchen when you felt one with the tree till today, how do you think this whole thing has transformed your life, and why?
Well, I was already very spiritual, but it gave me a direction. I didn't understand, as I already mentioned. I didn't understand, so I did. It made me. I think it forced me to study even more, or to want to get into it even deeper. So that was. But I was already very spiritual. I had, and I don't have this in my book because it's just a personal thing. But when I was first separated in 1970, I separated. No, this was in 71. I had a tumor right beside my stomach, and they had to take it out, and they thought it was cancer, and it was quite large, and they were really not happy, And I said to myself that before the operation, well, but if they told me I only have 1 year left to live, what would I have wanted to do with my life?
Right.
And my answer was to help others. And so I became a family counselor. And so I was a family counselor for 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I see that connection.
Yeah.
So you really did.
So that one experience brought me to the need to learn more, but it didn't change me.
Yeah, no, I don't think I don't think NDEs change the core of a person. I think it just brings their greatness to the surface, so to speak, because everybody I spoke to always devotes their life to like the betterment of mankind. Do you find that too?
Yes, yeah, and it's because of the love. It's two things to happen: the life review and understanding our effect on others, because that's all that was in the life review. I mean, like, they don't talk about money or being a clean housekeeper or whether you're beautiful or not.
Right.
They only talk about how you were with other people.
Now, we didn't talk about the life review too much. Not everybody has one, though, right? Could you explain to our listeners a little bit about the life review process?
Sure. The life review, normally what happens is that the person sees their life from birth sometimes to right up to when they had their death experience or near death experience. And what the emphasis of that time is to see how they were with others, as I've already mentioned. And so they not only see, but they feel exactly what that other person felt.
Oh,
And they
wow.
also, so for example, they don't get judged. There's no judgment, but they do feel what that other person felt. So sometimes people will say, I wish he could feel how I feel right now. Well, he will, or she, he or she will. That's one point. The other point about the life review is that not only do they feel what the other person felt, but how that person brought it to their next person and their next person until it faded out like an echo. So it goes down the line. It's very that's what happens with the life review. Now, those people are the ones that are most driven to helping others and being good people. The other aspect of that is the love. They come to understand that they are love, that love is their being. And as a matter of fact, that's my motto, is to be the love you are.
Yeah.
Because that is our being. That's what we're made up of. What the source creates with is love. It's love power.
Do you think there are demonic forces on the earth existing here with us? Like, what accounts for that?
No, I don't agree with that. I think that we are amazing creators and we create that. So you may see it, but you've created it.
Yeah.
Just like with the hellish experience, we create those too.
Right. Yeah, because in one person's NDE, he said he fell into this when he first passed. He fell into this void, as he describes it, and then he said, "Jesus, please rescue me." And a hand came and pulled him out of this void, and he physically felt like he was being pulled out of the darkness. Really.
Yeah. I want to correct one thing. The void is not the hellish. The void, people will often go to the void and it can feel very beautiful and very soft. Yeah. So that isn't, it's black. That's why it's called, because it's nothing there. They usually can eventually, when they're there for a few minutes or whatever, they see a spark of light, and then that becomes larger. But the void itself is not evil or bad or hell or any.
Yeah.
What would be a hellish experience where they see things happening or they feel, that they're being attacked or, yeah.
I wonder why that's so prevalent. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm sorry I cut you off. I just wanted to say that one of the things about the death experiences, as we've already mentioned, is that there are a whole pile, like being able to talk telepathically or whatever, that they all feel, okay, that all happen. But when it comes to the hellish experiences, they're all different. There is no similarities, except that it's horrible.
Did you gain any special abilities after your spiritual, or during your spiritual journeys? Like, are you very intuitive? Any of those things, Lynn?
Yeah, I am, but I don't know if I got it then because I started getting psychic kind of experiences when I was 13. So I don't know if maybe it was enhanced by my experience. Could have been.
Do you
But having said that, I think that because we are one with the source, I think that psychic abilities are perfectly natural. There's there, everybody could have them.
I agree with that completely. Do you still experience those powerful psychic um, moments in your life, or do they come and go? Like, yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah. And what I do now with my meditation is I connect with that love consciousness that that is in the universe, the universal love consciousness, and yeah, and then bring it into me. Another thing I do, by the way, you might be interested, your audience might, is I I believe that because every one of those particles that I talked about earlier are have a consciousness. Um, I think that, and certainly the tiniest little amoeba
Mm-hmm.
was a life form, and that's what the eventually became an atom. Um, I think that those tiny little atoms are life forms, and that
Yeah,
we're filled with these life forms that are connected to the source. And
yeah.
so I send love messages to my to all my cells in my body and tell them how marvelous they are and what a great job they're doing.
I like that. Do
Yeah.
you do that during meditation?
The what? I'm sorry.
Do you do that during your
I
meditation?
do it. Yes, I do. Yes, and now I might do it up, before I go to sleep at night, or other times. But yes, I definitely. Yeah.
Did you ever experience lucid dreaming yourself, where you astro projected and left your? No, you never experienced that.
No.
I know a lot of people that have, and it's very trippy. It's and there are people that teach you how to do that, and I don't know. I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure I'd want to do that.
Yeah. If you go to Monroe Institute, they will
Yeah,
teach you. Yeah.
yep, yeah,
Uh,
yeah. A good friend of mine, Preston Dennett, who I interview a lot, wrote a book on that, and it was fascinating. He has the ability to astro project on command, basically,
yeah.
and he travels all over the universe.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. I mean, I totally believe it. It's not like I don't, but
And those people can also have NDE like experiences. I mean, they
Mhm.
wouldn't be death experiences, but it would be the similar kind of thing, and learning all the kinds of information that we talk about.
Yeah, yeah. Do you still research NDEs?
Yes.
Oh, so you still are actively involved in? Oh, you do. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, right now I'm writing a book, and I'm for each subject, I do a research to find um, examples that I can, like, I'll talk about the issue or the point or whatever, and then I research to find um, pictures, or sorry, to find NDEs that support it. And so that's what I'm doing. So right now I'm looking for the thoughts and choices, because I want to illustrate that we are in control.
Oh, well, that'll be pretty interesting to read. And you're working on this book right now, right?
Yeah.
Interesting. Great. So, in closing, and thank you so much for all of your time. It was fascinating finding all this out and talking to you. And you have so much experience with knowing all these different NDE stories and their different meanings. And in closing, what advice would you give to our listeners that are wanting a spiritual awakening without having to go through an NDE? Like, what advice?
Yeah, read and explore and keep an open mind, and open yourself up to being willing to hearing strange things, or because I talk about strange things. Anyway, that's one. The other thing is to trust yourself more, because you really are magnificent, and you can do way, way more than you know you can. So just give yourself a little bit of a boost there. And those are my two main messages that I would, and meditate. Or if you can't meditate, try and learn to do what is it called? Where you're conscious of every single move and every. I'm sorry, I can't remember.
So what type of meditation do you still practice? Is it transcendental meditation, or do you just sit for 10, 15 minutes and just go, deep into your own spiritual awareness, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's what I do.
Good. So your spiritual journey, Lynn, still continues to this day, right? You're always evolving, always researching, learning, growing.
Yep.
That's wonderful. I try to do that myself every day. It's not always easy, but again, folks, you can read Lynn's book, and I will have the link to where you can find that in the description of this video, as well as visiting lynnKrussell.com and check out her book. It was really a great read. And like I said, I'm definitely going to peek back into it, because I didn't read all of the NDEs, but it's fun to do that at night, just lay in bed and read all the different NDEs, because they're just fascinating to discover. But thank you so much, Lynn. It was truly a blessing being able to see you.
Yeah, it's been great. Thank you for asking me. I've had fun talking to you.
Thank you. And after your next book, you definitely have to come back.
Okay.
Okay. Talk to you soon, Lynn.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. That was a great conversation. She had a very unique and special spiritual journey. And I think we're all on a spiritual journey every day, whether we realize it or not. I know a lot of folks that are not by nature spiritual people, but they're on a spiritual journey as well. They just are not acutely aware of it. But if you have any questions, of course, leave them in the comments section below. And again, you're listening to Ethereal Encounters Unveiled. We just had our guest, Lynn K. Russell, with us. She was magnificent. I love talking to her. Thank you so much for tuning in to our conversation on the United Public Radio Network and the UFO Paranormal Radio Network, which is 105.3 and 107.7 FM in beautiful New Orleans. Please be sure to join us every Thursday. We stream live between the hours of 5 and 7. And please, please hit that subscribe button. It means the world to me when you do. Bookmark this so you can listen to it and watch our future airings. We have a lot of exciting guests coming up every Thursday between the hours of 5 and 7. Thank you all so much. God bless to each and every one of you, and Happy New Year. Take care. Bye-bye, folks.